welcome to my channel, Fred Makes Things. And this week's sewing video, we've got Sewers Club project review for you for November 2024. This video is going to be in 4 parts. Part 1 is who is Sewers Club and what came in the box. Part 2 is going to be looking at the project itself, discussing the project. Part 3 is pros, cons, and user error. And then part 4 is final thoughts and sign off. Timestamps are on the screen for you in the description box and should be chapters in the video as well. So if there's a certain section that you've clicked on to this video for, do feel free to use those timestamps and move around the video as you choose. So yeah. Before we jump into part 1, I do want to say hello to everybody. Hello to the new subscribers and the originals and anyone in between. Hello to anyone that's clicked on this video and is still watching, however long into this video we are sitting at. You are all appreciated. You are all welcome. Feel free to comment down in the comment section. I'm a tiny channel, and I like to read what's going on down there. Not so much when someone tells me I have empty content, but you know, all comments help, I guess, in the algorithm. But anyway, yeah, I have no other preamble for you today. I have no babbling or rambling or anything, so let's just get into the video. Part 1, who is Sewers Club? Why are we talking about them? And then what came inside of the box. If you are curious about the actual unboxing of this video, I will have it linked right here in the upper right hand corner of the screen for you. And it will also be as a video at the end of this video in the end cards. So if you just want to see what this box is and my initial impressions of that, that's where you can find that. In this one, we just kind of talk about what came inside of the box, but I don't go into like any heavy detail about it. But yeah, so let's talk Sewers Club. Sewers Club started as a monthly project subscription box where you get everything you need to make one project. The fabric, the pattern, thread, any other kinds of notions like zippers or buttons or whatnot that you need to finish the project. For an additional around $10 a month, you can also get the Notion add-on. These can help you with your sewing project, but are not necessary for the completion of it. Sometimes it's directly helpful. I suddenly can't think of an example like that off the top of my head. Oh, a couple months ago we got an awl in the box as the add-on, and it was to help us work some faux leather handles onto a project basket. Here's a photo of that for you kind of see what I'm talking about. So you didn't need the awl, you could have had something else to help work with it. But it's nice to get things like that to kind of make things just a little bit easier. Other times it's just fun things like scissors or extra needles and things to organize bobbins and whatnot. So yeah, that's Sewers Club in a nutshell. They have a secondary box called Stash Builder. This is a highly customizable box that you can choose to get. You can do fat, quarters, or half-yard cuts in a multitude of options. Here's a link to my most recent Stash Builder unboxing from a couple of weeks ago if you're interested in that. And I talk about both of them because Sewers Club does know who I am. These videos are in no way sponsored or anything like that, but they appreciate me talking about them and the high opinion that I have of them, and they've kindly given me an affiliate discount code for you. So code FRED will save you $12 Canadian on your first project box, and code FRED30 can save you 30% on your first Stash Builder bundle, box, what have you. Different codes because the pricing structure is a little different for the both of them. So if you are interested, like I said, they are an affiliate code, so I do make a small commission off of them when you choose to use them. But even without the commission, I would still, you know, happily give you the codes, happily talk about Sewers Club. They are easily my favorite subscription box. So that is Sewers Club in a nutshell. If you have any further questions about anything to do with them, leave them in the comments section. I'll try to answer what I can. And now let's talk what came in the box. So as I work on a project, everything goes back into the box that it came in. I've even started labeling them, so I've got like November written on here, so that I can come back downstairs and talk to you about all of them. So like I said, I opened this box before. That's a video from 2 weeks ago. And now we're going to talk about it. So, oh, I put the Notion thing on the top and it locked it in place. So this was our Notion add-on for this month. A Creative Grids self-healing mini cutting mat, 7 by 8 inches. It's a pretty good mat. I really liked it. I like the stars and squares, kind of showing you where you need to cut, right? Things like that. It's a good size ruler too for squaring things off and just kind of having it by your workstation. So this was the add-on. Big fan. This is the pattern that we were making this month, the Garden Party placemats. We have some leftover fabric and stuff we'll talk about in a minute. Here's our thread that we got for this month. It's color 202 by Gutermann. I had a spool of this upstairs already, so I used that up, and then I have this left over here. There's our little card that tells us everything that we get. Another photo of the placemats, and more scrap. So, it's not a huge box. I don't have a whole lot of scrap left or anything like that. But I do have some, so I have enough. It was a poly cotton batting that they sent this time, I believe. Yeah, 80-20 cotton poly. They sent 3/8 of a yard. So just under half a yard, and this is how much I have left. So not enough really for another placemat, but it'll be good for other things like mug rugs and whatnot. I have 2 strips of the binding fabric that they had us cut. So this is all that's left. They had us cut 4 binding strips. And then like, so 2 of the binding strips together per thing. And then this is how much of those that I have left. So not a whole lot. Little kind of fussy pieces of the white of the backing. A couple of larger pieces of the backing as well. Again, good for piecing other things in the future. Then I have this much of the white left. Probably enough to maybe make 1 more placemat out of if I'm economical with my cuts, but it's uncertain. This they gave us 3/8 of a yard of as well. I have just a little bit of this blue fabric left, and that's because they only gave us a fat 1/8 of it, right? Because it's not a whole, it's the accent color. I got the blue. You could have gotten a blue, or it looks like you could have had a red. So that's how much of the blue I have left. And then I have some scrap pieces, some scrap cuts of this floral. We got the most of the floral. We got a full yard of it. We have some, like, again, some stuff to do piecing with in the future if I wanted to piece together like a mug rug or something. We have just this little piece. We've got this larger piece, and then we have quite a bit of this whole piece left. Like it's a whole, almost a whole width. It would have been, but I wasn't paying attention to some of my cuts. So I had to cut off part of one of these to finish making a square, but I have almost a whole length and this. So I have almost, I would say almost a quarter yard left. Just over a third of a yard, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't have my scissors down, or my scissors. I don't have my measuring tape, but I definitely have enough to make some future projects. Like even if I wanted to keep this and then find, like, instead of doing the blue, but find like a different color, like maybe the red or something to make coordinating placemats, I could probably get away with it. My backing might not be able to stay this red or this floral, but they might, who knows. So that's how much fabric I have left. When you're doing piecework and stuff like that, you usually end up with some fussy pieces. And then, like I said, this is how much thread I have. I think that with quilting and stuff, I would have gone through like the entire, almost the entire spool. But because I had like a quarter of another spool left, I ended up with some of this as leftover. Then we have the pattern book itself, which is really nice, right? It walks you through everything and everything that you do need. And even right on the bottom here, it says makes 2 placemats. I was confused when I did the unboxing because I'm like, how many placemats does it make? And then right there it says. So yeah, that is what came in the box. So let's talk part 2. The actual project itself. As always, as I go to grab it, I see I have a loose thread. So, it made 2. I made them slightly different from each other in the binding. We'll talk about that in pros, cons, and user error. Here's the first one. This is the first one that I bound. I made them at the same time. So all of the points for the most part, where am I? All of the points for the most part come together quite nicely. You still have like a little bit of issue, like here's some, right? But overall, it looks really quite nice. It's mostly square except for right over in here, and we'll talk about that in pros, cons, and user error. I didn't want to do a whole like elaborate quilting thing, so I did adjoining, whatever, V's meeting down the middle of the star. And I think it took, like, I think the quilting looks really nice that way. If you hear noise in the background, the kitten is playing. So here's the first one. And then here's the second one. It's exactly the same as the first one. It's just bound a little bit differently. Again, the points aren't perfect, but they look pretty good. Same V shape. Not a whole lot to talk about, right? Because it's a pretty simple project. Here's the back side. And here's the back side of this one. Like, it's a simple project because the concentration was really doing the piecework. So, yeah, that's all really for part 2. Part 3, pros, cons, and user error. Pro, I like how simple this pattern is. Like, it's a lemon, what do they call it? A lemon star? Lemoyne star? They call them garden party placemats. Yeah, so features 8-point Lemoyne star or lemon star quilt block. It helps you with the half square triangles quite a bit, right? It helps with piecing. For like a piecing project, it's really easy, pretty nice and straightforward project. It's very simple in its design. It's very simple in its cuts, in its attachments, in its walkthrough. The colors look good. The colors talk to each other. This type of floral is usually not a floral that I gravitate to. Right, it's very much in that country aesthetic, and I'm not really a country cottagey kind of aesthetic kind of person. But for what it is, it's really good. For a beginner piecing project, I think it's really great. I'm not really super experienced in quilts and piecework and stuff like that. If you've been following my quilt updates, you know that I'm fairly new to quilting, and I'm still getting the hang of a lot of it. Right, I've only been really messing with piecework for the last couple of years, and so it's nice. It's nice to have a project like this. We've had a lot of bags, we've had a lot of structure creation projects. We haven't had a lot of piecework, and I like that about this project. I like how quickly it came together as well. And I also like how they kind of like let you do what you wanted to do with the quilting. Like, they weren't very specific about what you did. They just basically told you to quilt it. Cons. And I find this interesting that they didn't do sashing on the top and the bottom of the star, that they have the star end where it ends. And even in the instructional video I was watching, when they were putting it together, they cut off a couple of their points on both the top and on the bottom, and that's really interesting to me that they ended up cutting off like the points as they were working. Like, it's not a huge deal, right? It's just placemats. But I just found that interesting that even as they walked you through it and they were doing all of their binding and stuff, I saw that they had pinched the points. So I felt a little better about pinching mine. Like, if you look underneath, the binding, you can see on this one here that the points are actually not actually cut off. It's that my binding goes down too far. And on this one, this point sits a little higher. This point also isn't really cut off with the binding, but with my binding they ended up being cut off. This one here I think is a little bit better because I did the binding a little bit differently. See, these 2 points are perfect, and then down here again without the binding, this is the only point that's actually cut off. So I found that interesting in the cons, that they, even as they were doing the walkthrough, it's not exactly perfect. Yeah, but I also think that kind of goes to show that everybody isn't perfect all of the time, you know what I mean? But yeah, user error. Let's just get into user error and talk about that. So I babbled through user error, right? I've done pros, cons, and now I'm on to user error. In the video, this should be continuous, but for me, it was me babbling for like 6 minutes trying to make my point, and then me giving up and re-recording. So, yay, user error. Because this project is so simple, and for some reason, I always have a hard time with placemats, especially with Sewers Club, for some unknown reason. It's like, because they're so simple, something always has to give me a problem. And in this one, the binding kind of started to give me an issue. So Sewers Club talked about how to do binding a couple of different ways, right? And they had you do a very traditional binding finish, which I'll talk about in a minute. But they said, like, if you are, there's two ways to do your binding. There's having your binding on, like, starting your binding on the back and then wrapping it around to your front. Wrapping it around to your front. And this is really good if you plan on machine stitching it down so that you can have a clean edge. And that's what I did on this one, but I don't like it. I don't like how much extra bulk I have on it. And I also don't like, I didn't do my binding attaching very well, so there's like a couple of puckers and stuff like that that I'm not a fan of. But the idea is if you're machine stitching, if you end up running off or over, all of that is hidden in the back and it gives you the cleanest front. And now if I were better at sewing things down cleanly, that would probably make for a really nice clean top. But as you can see, I need a lot of practice with having the edge, right, finishing the top last instead of first. So that's this one, plus like there's all of this here that is a mess. But overall, looking at it, right, ironing it down, I'll probably, like, and washing it, you're probably not really going to see some of these issues, but I know they're there. I also have some like drag marks from when I was ironing it. But all of that can be cleaned up, and my points aren't really great on, well, they're not perfect, but like I said, I'm not perfect at making points, so it makes sense. This one, I forgot that I was trying this way of binding, and I did it the way that I normally do it. And I find this to be a lot cleaner because I can hide my stitch in the binding itself. All right, and I'm not doing a contrast, I'm doing a coordinating stitch, so you can't really tell that it's there. So I find this to be a lot nicer looking for me. Again, there's still some pulls and stuff from the iron and whatnot, but I could take care of that pretty easily. As I was talking, I noticed that I completely missed catching this one part here on the binding, so I have to go back in and clean that up. This is where I closed the binding off, so it doesn't really surprise me that there's an issue here. So I'll just have to tear this section out and restitch it down, and it should be fine. The backs you can't really tell too much, but yeah. And one of the reasons that there was some fussiness with this is that this cotton feels very nice, but it does fray a little bit more than some other quilting cottons that I've worked with. So some of the fraying was giving me issue. And also binding, like this binding was giving me issue here. And it's a traditional, what I think of as a traditional way of binding. So with my quilt experimentation, there's 3 ways that I've mostly seen binding done. So you start your quilt off, right? Or you start whatever you're working on off, and you always leave some of your binding loose, right? Like you leave a tail for you to work with. So we'll say that this whole section here is the tail that we're working with. We've sewn this down and we have this tail. Then as we come back along, right, or sewing, again, we finish somewhere and we leave this tail. And then we figure out, right, like, I'm not talking about it here, but we end up lining up our tails. And we leave enough of them that we can trim so that they nest in perfectly. And then we open them up. So we open one side of our tail like this, right? So this is sewn down, this is open, this is sewn down, right? And then we open it this way. We attach them together on an angle, right? And then we sew them down at a 45-degree angle. So, right, we go zip down like this so that when we open it, can I do this? It's hard without pins or anything to really demonstrate this. But when we open it, right, everything comes together. This is sewn at a 90-degree angle. It's all nice and clean. And then when we fold it up, these are sewn down, right? And we have a really pretty hidden join. And when you're looking at these, right, you can't really see where the join is, right? Like, here's the join on this one, right? But it kind of blends in, right? And here's the join on this one, but this one's a mess, right? So it's supposed to blend in really well. There's other ways of doing it too. There's the way that I often cheat with, which is, so this is your one side that's bound, not bound, sewn down. And what I do is I just fold this in right 1/2 inch or so, still leave it unsewn, but now I have like all my raw edges are hidden. I sew it down so that when I come back around here, I just tuck this tail into this tail after trimming it, right? It's nice and clean. And then you can sew this down, and then when you fold it over, you end up having like a little bit of a noticeable join. But I like this because it's a lot less fussy. The third way, and I've seen some people do this and I've thought about doing it, is to already fold your tail down first, right? Like this, fold it over. And then when you're sewing, right, this is already folded in. So when this comes back around, again, you tuck it inside, right? And then you just keep on sewing. And then when you have your binding done, right, it looks like this. So again, it's hidden, but it's not sewn together. Like, there's still like a little bit of a gap. So those are the 3 ways that I understand binding mostly is done. I'm sure there's other ways too. But Sewers Club had you do it the most traditional way. And this is, to me, some of the hardest ways of getting it done. I always have trouble with it. And because, see, and because this fabric frays and stuff like it, as you can see, as I've been working with it, it's been fraying. I was just at the end of my rope with it. So that is why there's issues, why this ends up sitting like this, and why this one is a little bit puckered and messed up. So if I'm going to be fussy, I'll go in, try to clean this up. I'm going to go in and try to clean this up. But as far as user error goes, that is the biggest issue. So if you are, what I'm trying to say is, if you are brand new to sewing and you're very new to binding, and it is it a little intimidating? Maybe it's a little daunting, especially with the fussy way, and you don't mind like a little bit of a bump. I recommend just the fold down way. When you come back around, you could tuck it in and you could be done with it. And if I were to make these placemats again, I'd probably do it this way. On a bigger quilt, I like having like the nice proper clean way, but on something small like this, I would tuck it in. So that was just a long story to say my biggest user error is the binding and all of that. It doesn't look bad, right? Like, you're not really going to be able to tell too much that I messed up, but I know and I'll know that it's messed up and it will bother me. So I guess we've reached part 4. I haven't shown you what the placemats look like in general. So here they are. Here is them set up on my kitchen table or dining table, side by side, we'll say. Here's a photo of them just on their own, or one of them just on their own, so you can kind of get an idea of what the overall feeling is for them, because they almost fit on my screen, but they don't quite fit. I like them. I may or may not make more of them. I may take the scraps that I have and maybe make a table runner to run down the center of my table. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I do like them. I do think for the most part they are very beginner friendly. I think that if you don't have you know, like sometimes like something messed you up once, or you messed something up once, and then in your brain there's like this block and you always think that no matter what it's going to be hard. I wonder if that's where I'm at with binding. So if you've never had a problem with binding, and you go into this with the idea that you've never had issues with binding and that everything is great, the binding's probably going to be perfect for you. I have this preconceived beef with binding, and I think that maybe that colored it a little bit. It's definitely nothing to do with Sewers Club and their pattern in general. Like, it's a very straightforward pattern. So overall, I think it's a pretty good project. I'm happy with how they turned out. I'm happy with how they look. They're not really my cup of tea in general, but I am happy with it. And I am happy that we've moved away from purses and pouches and things like that. Off of the top of my head, I can't think of the last time that we didn't have a purse or a pouch. All right, so looking back, I've pulled up my Sewers Club playlist. So October was a pouch. September was a pouch. August, I couldn't remember it. That was the book tote. I love the book tote. July was a basket. June was a purse. May was a pouch. April was a wallet, like a little mini card wallet. March was a tote bag. February was another pouch, and January was a project bag. So this was the very first non pouch bag thing to put something into project that we've had this year, and I'm very happy about that. Don't get me wrong, I've really liked all of the projects so far this year. But it's always nice to have a little bit of a change up, and I appreciate that. And yeah, so what do you think? Do you like it? Do you not? I know some like these colors, some don't. That's very much personal preference, but do let me know what you think down in the comment section. Do you have as many issues with binding as I do, or do you think, like me, I might have some sort of weird bias block going on? And it's really funny because on the bigger projects, my binding doesn't cause me as much issue. It's just these small placemat projects that they seem to, and especially Sewers Club placemat projects that they really messed me up on. I don't know what it is. Like, really, they're the easiest, simplest projects, and yet for some reason they always give me such a hard time. But do let me know what you think down in the comment section. Think about subscribing if you want to continue to follow along on my Sewers Club sewing journey. Next week we're talking something slightly different but shocking. It's a thing that you put things into project, but not Sewers Club related, something different. yeah, so what else do we have coming up, I should say? Monday, I'm hoping for Meowbox unboxing. The shipping says November 26th, but I'm really, really hoping it arrives sooner than that, because if it doesn't, I don't know what Monday's video is going to be. Wednesday, like I said, is sewing project. Fridays are always our sticker by number time lapse. And then the following week, we're in December. Like, I can't believe we're hitting December already. But the first Monday of December is our crochet review video. And then we're getting back into some more unboxings. And December, we are doing hopefully 24 days of December. I've never come up with a clever name for whatever I do in December, but I do try to get 24 videos up in the 24 days leading up to Christmas, and then I take a break. And my in-laws are coming to see us this year, so I'll actually be in Connecticut for Christmas. It'll be the first time since the world shut down, and I'm kind of excited for it. So do think about subscribing if any of that interests you. Like the video if you've made it to the end, and I'm going to go. So with all of that being said, I'm going to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk with you again soon.